I'm glad I'm here. Thank you all very much. I apologize for having you inside on a very nice evening. So I'm just going to say a few comments then. I'm just going to open up for questions. Who, staff-wise, let me just get some logistics here. Claire, are you going to have the mic, or how does it? Okay, Greer will have it. So that's the person that when you have a mic in your hand, that means it's your turn to ask a question. So we like to make sure that happens correctly. So she'll do that at a certain point when I start asking people if you have questions, just to raise your hand. Again, thank you very much. We had a town hall meeting last night that was statewide. We have obviously this town hall meeting now. We'll have additional, as time goes on, we'll continue to do these. I prefer being out at events like this, gives a chance for people to ask whatever question they want. I attempt to answer them, or answer them if I can. If not, I'll tell you that. But I first want to give you kind of a quick on what's happening in Washington, and then I'll go right into whatever questions you all want to ask. First off, the number one, and I've said this for the last 4.5 years, almost now 5 years being in the Senate, the number one issue we focused on and have focused on is trying to figure out how to move this economy in the right direction. That has been the biggest challenge. Alaska's been very fortunate in a lot of ways compared to the lower 48. But we have seen some good progress over the last several years, the last 2.5 years here. It's moving slow, but at a steady pace. There's some good data that came out today. In almost all the major areas in the lower 48, all the residential markets are up higher than they've been since 2007, which is good. The economy overall, consumer confidence is up. Everything's kind of clicking along, but still very fragile. We have some issues we're dealing with, which is the budget, sequestration, a word that everyone's now become more familiar with, which no one knew what that meant a year ago. What it really means is automatic budget cuts across all jurisdictions of the federal government, which has had some negative impacts for Alaska, and will continue to have impacts until we get a long-term plan on the budget. And that's what a lot of us are focused on, especially over the next several months, because we know as we're working through the budget process now, come October 1st, we'll be right back into this again. So we're trying to figure out a solution here. I sit on the Appropriations Committee. This is the committee that determines the spending levels of all the different departments and agencies. So we're focused on trying to do what we can to get some more long-term stability with the overall budget. So that's going to be one of the biggest struggles. An interesting data point, I want to remember the month, so I'm just going to glance here so I don't get the month wrong. But in about 3 months, it was anticipated that as we continue to borrow money to pay this debt that's accumulating in the cost of this government, because we're still working in a deficit, it was anticipated that we would have to borrow another $100-some billion. For the first time since 2006, we will actually have the reverse of that. We will actually be paying toward the national debt for the first time to the tune of almost $35 billion. That's just unbelievable progress, and that is on two fronts. The economy clearly is moving, so tax receipts from corporate and individuals are up, growth has expanded, and budget has been reduced. It's a combination of things. That's an amazing, because we were planning and anticipating about $108 million, or $1 billion, that we'd have to go into a borrowing cycle again, but now it's going to be the reverse and paying down to the national debt for the first time since 2006. Let me go to two other quick ones. We are going to have immigration reform coming up probably in about 2.5 weeks. When we get back, the first item, which will be next week, will be a piece of legislation. I won't go into the details of this one, but it's called a WERDA bill, which basically deals with the Corps of Engineers. That's just more of a funding bill. Then we'll move very quickly into immigration reform. That will consume several weeks of our time. And I want to make it very clear, because I've enjoyed, and I say this sarcastically, some of the ads that have been on TV that are unbelievable. Somehow I'm going to take everyone's Social Security check. I'm going to do amnesty for everybody, and that's it, and destroy the economy. That's the ads that are running. Okay. You're going to see a lot of those ads. I got to be frank with you. This is something, because we're now in an election cycle, even though we just finished one, on the national level, Senate races are engaged in election cycles much earlier now. And what does that mean? That means all this outside money from outside groups will pour into this state. And you're going to see these kind of ads. You're going to want to take the longest summer vacation you can figure out. That hopefully will last through November of next year, because these ads are going to get more ruthless in the sense of their messaging, and you're going to see a lot of that. And I apologize, they're not our ads. They're people who are just plowing money into this state, and that's one of the ads. But immigration reform is going to be in front of us. We're going to have probably 3 elements we're going to be focused on from my perspective. One is how we deal with the borders and making sure we have secure borders. Second is making sure that individuals who want to be on the path of citizenship have several things they're going to have to do. One, they do have to go to the back of the line. They do have to pay their taxes. They do have to pay their fines. They will have to ensure that they have not committed any criminal activity. If they have, they got to go back to their home country. But there will be a path. There will be a long path, to be very frank with you, but there will be a path of citizenship, but based on some parameters. Also, businesses that are illegally harboring legal immigrants and taking advantage of them will be prosecuted. Much stronger prosecution, because we rarely prosecute people when we know that they have knowingly harbored illegal immigrants and they are taking advantage of these individuals. The other thing, the federal government, 40% of the illegal immigrants in our nation have come through actual visas we have granted. In other words, student visas, work visas that have expired, that we have not followed up on. And so therefore, that system has to be also fixed. And then from Alaska's perspective, there's some issues with the J-1 visa. We're very concerned about how it's been implemented in the past. And we want to make sure that Alaskans get the first priority for jobs and making sure that when that can't be done, that there's an opportunity to fill those jobs. So we're watching this bill very carefully. It's still in a committee, and then it will come to the U.S. Senate. I mean, if you saw the ads today, you think we're voting on it tomorrow. That's not the case. It's still in a committee right now. We'll go through that committee process over the next week or week and a half, and then come to us probably before the end of May, or we'll be into it in the first part of June, just to give you a sense there. The last item, which is one we just finished, and I know maybe there'll be questions, I don't know, but on the issue of guns, and let me make it very clear here. My record on guns hasn't changed in 25 years. So people who think there's like a newfound belief that I have, or a political belief, it has been what it has been. And some of those, and those that go onto my Facebook page, I do read the Facebook page. So I see the commentary. People who go on saying I don't see that, I do. I want to make clear on a couple of points, because I see it on there and I just want to clarify it. When we made a vote on that bill, both Senator Murkowski and I looked at the different amendments, and there were some we could support, and there were some we could not support, based on what they had in there and what they were going to do. We did not vote for what they call the Manchin Amendment. We think it went too far and had a lot of loopholes still in it, and did not go after what we thought was some of the core issues. The Grassley Amendment, which we did vote for, which had actually 9 Democrats and a sizable amount of Republicans, voted for this one. It failed also. But it dealt with a piece that I was very interested in. And this was one on mental health. And let me just give you a data point. In this country, there are 22 states that do not enter into the background check system. The people who have been deemed by the courts to be mentally incompetent should not own a gun. Alaska is one of those. There are 2,000 individuals in this state that have been deemed by the courts to not be able to possess or own a gun. But this state refuses to put them into the system. And we think this is a huge problem. And there are 22 states like this, 600,000 people. And so we worked with both the mental health providers and the NRA. If you can believe this, they both agreed at the end of the day with the legislation we brought forward, which was both Republican and Democrats supported, because we think this is a huge gap in the system. There's another gap. 30 states, if you are convicted of a drug offense in this country, and there's about 30 states that do not enter those into the background check system. Under federal law, they're supposed to be. And I'll give you one other piece, and that's why on all these we had some votes we took, some we did not agree with, but on this one we felt this is some of the areas we should fix. The other piece, which was trafficking and straw purchases. These are people who will go from less regulated states and move to more regulated states. This, Senator Murkowski and I voted for. It failed by 2 votes. And this would also ensure that if you are a felon, I don't mean to say you are a felon, but you just happen to be right there when I pointed, so I apologize. But you know you can't get a gun, you will get someone else to go buy it for you, a straw purchaser. Under federal law, there's no violation there. Under state laws, there is. So we believe there should be a federal law to do that, and we actually voted for that. So what you read sometimes is not the full story, and I'll end on this one note on guns, and that is, in Sandy Hook, which is an incredible tragedy, and I met with the families twice, and they helped me work on a mental health bill to clean that up and make some good progress on it. The store that sold those guns to the family, the mother, did not do so illegally, but that store had 500 violations of the ATF law. They did not pull that license until 3 weeks after that incident. So you have to ask yourself, why? And we are asking them. So the gun issue is not as simple as people like to make it sound. There's a lot of pieces of enforcement that aren't happening today that should be dealt with. And that's where I can tell you Senator Murkowski and I have been focused on. So I know there might be some questions there. Let me end there. And I know there's some specifics. I can feel the Pebble people here. I can just feel it. I don't know if that's because of the shiny buttons. I'm not sure what it is. But I know there'll be lots of questions. So what we'll try to do is, this is where Greer gets a workout, because I usually will zigzag back and forth from side to side. So we're going to start over here if there's a question, and I'll be happy to take them, and then we'll just walk through it. Let's go right